The highly developed introspective psychology called Structuralism was first developed in Germany by Wilhelm Wundt. It is represented in its American form by the work of A.B. Titchener. Wilhelm Wundt thought that psychology needed laboratory experimentation carried out by the trained observers. Wundt opposed materialism because he did not think a science of mind could be developed solely through physical investigation of the brain. He felt that the study of mind must be a science of experience. Wundt supported the existence of science of psychology quite independent of biology and physiology. He developed that psychology must have an experimental side. According to Boring, the application of the experimental method to the problem of mind is a great outstanding event in the history of the study of mind, an event to which no other is comparable. Wundt was the man responsible for this unparalleled event. Subject matter of psychology. According to Wundt, the subject matter of psychology is to be immediate experience as contrast to immediate experience. By immediate experience, Wundt meant experience used as a way to find out about something other than the experience itself. This is a way in which we use experience in gaining knowledge about the world. Immediate experience is experience as such, and the task of psychology is the study of this immediate experience in itself. If we attempt to describe directly the experience we have in connection with a toothache, we are concerned with immediate experience. But if we use the experience to find out about the location of the cavity which caused the toothache experience, we have switched to immediate experience. The method of study. The method of study was to be introspection. However, Brunner made it clear that his introspection was not be mere self-observation. To him, introspection was to be the control observation of the content of consciousness under experimental condition. Definition of psychology. Psychology was defined as the analytic study of the generalized adult human mind through the method of introspection. In addition, Titchener emphasized mental structure and named this system structural psychology. By analogy, this system aimed to develop the chemistry of consciousness. First psychological laboratory. Wundt started a laboratory at Leipzig in 1870, which may be viewed as the first laboratory dedicated exclusively to psychological research. In 1881, he founded a journal, Philosophical Studies, to report the experimental study of his laboratory. Wundt was a remarkable man. He was an ardent advocate of psychology as a separate discipline. Reaction time. In his laboratory, he worked on reaction time. One of the discoveries made at Leipzig was that a subject reaction time, when the subject was concentrating on the stimulus first had to be perceived, that is, simply registered in consciousness, and then apperceived, or consciously interpreted in the light of the response that was associated with it. With attention focused on the response, the added step of a perception or conscious interpretation of the stimulus was not necessary. Perception and apperception. Wouldn't believe that conscious experience is something more than just the sum of its elements. He recognized that the same mental elements may combine together in many different ways, and that the same sensory input may yield different conscious experience at different times. He also realized that there are some conscious when mental processes do seem to run on in habitual. predetermined, and mechanical ways. In describing the difference between the two processes, Wooden says a small number of ideas are always in attention, while many others are experienced only peripherally and not very distinctly. Edward Bradford Titchener. Titchener was one of the Wooden students. He introduced and interpreted Wooden system during his career at Cornell University in New York. Titchener was slowly concerned with the experimental analysis of the normal that human mind, not with individual differences. The structural psychology of Wooden and Titchener had a threefold aim. Number one, to describe the component of consciousness in terms of basic elements. Number two, to describe the combination of basic elements. And number three, to explain the connection of the elements of consciousness to the nervous system. From a structural point of view, psychology studies the world with reference to the experiencing person. Through the observational method of controlled introspection of the content of consciousness, while physics studies the physical world without reference to the person through observational method of carefully controlled inspection. Three-dimensional theory of feeling. In 1890, Wooden developed a three-dimensional theory of feeling. Wooden thought that feelings were along three dimensions, although Titchener agreed with only one. Modern theory of feeling as a reflection of mental perception approached a phenomenological interpretation of higher mental processing. Titchener did not accept modern theory of feeling as such, however, he proposed a theory of meaning suggesting that the context in which a sensation occurs in consciousness determines its meaning. Accordingly, a simple sensation has no meaning by itself, but occurs meaning by association with other sensation or image. The structuralism gave psychology a push into science. Despite all its shortcomings, Wooden did proclaim a formal discipline of psychology based upon scientific formulation, and psychology was recognized as a science.